So I'm going to request us, and as I do, I want to assure you, and I'm committing this on behalf of my panel, without asking them, that we are going to take 20 minutes only. Yes, so what I'm asking is actually that you'll compress your 70 combined experience and expertise in 5 minutes each, so that we make sure everyone is home on time, right? Let's stand, kindly. Let's stand. I know we've been seated the whole day, so let's just stand. DJ, please, for the next 30 seconds. DJ, for the next 30 seconds, if you can just put a sort of song to exercise us, then we can continue. Very fast, very fast. Guys, you know this song, right? Or at least you've heard it, right? All right, aha! Come on! Yay! Let's go this side. This side to my right. Left. Down. Down. Okay, up. Down.
Everybody now, put one hand in the air. One hand in the air. And we come from
hands in the air.
Watch this. Left.
Right.
Come on.
Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. Right.
Super time, super time.
Left,
Left, right, left, right.
Left, right. Left, right. Yes! Thank you, thank you, thank you, DJ. You can have your seats. Are we feeling better? All right, so we have 18 minutes left. Okay, so borrowing from the presentation by Dr. Divine on the status of our current education system, he said 21st century kids are being taught by 20th century adults using 19th century curriculum on an 18th century calendar. This last panel tonight will put this discussion into perspective. And as I said, I'm tasking you with the impossible role of ensuring that we make it home on time. So we were supposed to have 5 panelists. I know Ms. Martha Odundo, the Deputy Director of Education, Ministry of Education, could not be able to be with us today. And Professor Charles Ongondo, the CEO, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, will also send his regrets. And I know that was through Jen, so she'll tell us exactly what he said. We are looking forward. So we'll start. I have one question for each one of us. Please allow us today, and for the sake of time, to stick to that. We'll start with Ms. Jen Mwangi, who is the head of Secretariat Kenya Association of International Schools. And I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this panel had prepared research papers. Well, at heart and, you know, in the head, right? So it's very important that we also just get to know their profile, and I'll quickly go through Ms. Jen's as she answers my question. Jen is the head of Secretariat at the Kenya Association of International Schools. She also represents the association on the KEPSA Education Sector Board. She's passionate about education and believes that access to quality education is the right of every child. She has served in various education committees, working groups and panels within the Ministry of Education and Trade. For her contributions to the sector, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, and in the area of positioning Kenya as an education hub through policy, she was awarded the Order of the Grand Warrior of Kenya in June 2022. A round of applause for Jen. All right, so Jen, probably you could tell us, what are some of the observations that you can draw from the introduction of the competency-based curriculum in Kenya in relation to worldwide recognized standards of universal education? And as you do, in your 5 minutes, if you can, again, try to compress for us, first of all, why we needed these reforms, why CBC, and how does it compare to other global curricula? I
Okay.
know that's a mouthful, but please try. All
will.
right, thank you.
I will try. Good evening, everybody. I want to borrow the words of the previous panelist, the gentleman from Equity, who said, "We are here anyway." So if it goes beyond 5 minutes, we are here anyway. This is Panari. At the end, there's a bar upstairs, so it's win-win if you think about it. Oh yes, and there's Mandamano somewhere. Anyway, so just to answer your question, Sheila, let me just start with the history. We needed CBC because what we had before was not really a curriculum. We called it a curriculum because we didn't have another word for it. 844 was consequential. The country was setting up a second university, and in order to get students to that university, which was more university, they needed to create a pipeline, a pipeline to get these students to university, and from 5 and 6, not too many people qualified to go. So they compressed the curriculum, the content of the curriculum, reduced high school to 4 years, increased a year actually at primary school, and added one at university level, and we got 844. In all the years that 844 existed, we never even wrote a framework. So if you look through and try to find a framework for 844, you will not find one. What we did as a country, which is a testament to how great a people we are, regardless of the things we tend to do to ourselves, is we did very well in spite of 844. Not because of, but in spite of. And then the other thing that happened with our curriculum and education, we politicized every review that we attempted to have. So if you look at our history as a country, at every political stage, we tied it in with education. So development of infrastructure got affected because it was tied to politics. Reviews of curricula became affected because they were tied to politics. And that is how we ended up with a curriculum that did not serve us as a people. Now, when we got to the place, when we got to multipartism, I think, yes, and the new government took over, the Kibaki administration took over, they decided reforms were necessary, and they had been necessary for a very long time. Every commission of education we had since 1985 said we needed to reform and redo our curriculum. So in 2005, we did the final mutilation of 844. We took out tech subjects, we took out music, we took out music, we took everything that gives soul to a curriculum. So we presided over the funeral of 844. So we like to tell ourselves a story that 844, we died in 2016 with the piloting of 844, but really the true death and burial of 844 happened in 2005 when we took out the soul of that curriculum. And from that point, because we had so mangled that curriculum, we could never go back to it and reform it. It was not a curriculum to start with. We mangled it, we presided over its death, we needed something new, and that is how CBC happened. Now we listen to press, and we are told there was no stakeholder participation to come up with CBC. But other than the 2010 constitution, there is no process in this country of policy review that has undergone public participation than CBC. It began in 2003. That was the first national conference. It culminated in the Othiambo task force, which gave us CBC in 2012. It was rolled out in 2016, I think, if I'm right, and piloted, I think, the year before that. So in terms of, was there stakeholder participation? Yes. In terms of, is it a good curriculum on paper? It is brilliant. In terms of, does it answer the question of what we need to do as a country? Yes, it does that. Does it compare well with other curricula globally? Yes, it does. Now, you have mentioned that I am the head of secretariat at the Kenya Association of International Schools. So the schools that are members of the association deploy IGCSE and IB, which is sometimes considered the gold standard of curricula. CBC compares very well. In fact, it is a really well-written curriculum. Implementation, I think, is the devil in the details, and that is what we need to discuss. That is what we need to safeguard. As a person who follows the history of education and curriculum reforms, I am curious to see what the task force recommends, the Presidential Working Party recommends. I hope they will not mutilate that curriculum in the same way we mutilated 844, because we conflate issues in this country. We keep thinking we have a curriculum issue when what we have is an infrastructure issue. We don't have enough classrooms. We say, let us take away the subjects that need that classroom or that music room or that theater room. It is a very nonsensical thing we do in this country, and I'm not sure why we do it, but we do it. Perhaps those are the discussions we ought to have. How do we increase our infrastructure capacity? But in terms of curriculum reforms, it is the one thing we have done right, barring how we implemented it in 2016 when we did a national pilot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. I knew you had it in you. See, you've done well. Thank you so much for the history and also for asserting that, our competence-based curriculum actually meets the standards. And you're talking about implementation. The devil is in the details. So we'll go to Mr. Ochome, who can probably speak more into the implementation and to just give us perspective. Mr. Charles Ochome is the chairman, Kenya Private Schools Association. He holds a master's degree from the University of Salford, UK. He's also a businessman in various industries, education included, where he runs the Golden Elite Schools. He is also in the real estate and hospitality businesses, and a philanthropist who, through Pendeza Africa, gives sponsorships to learners in underprivileged communities. Mr. Ochome, probably to share with us, how has been your experience as a provider and implementer of the competency-based curriculum in Kenya?
Thank you, Sheila. I think Jen has given us a very good history. Thank you, Jen, for that incisive and very elaborate history of our curriculum development in this country. I want to say that we have a beautiful country with very hardworking people, very talented children, but the leaders fail us every now and then, because whenever we start our things, we don't want to progress them to the next level because we think other people are doing things better than us. I believe so much in myself, and therefore from where I start and to the implementation of CBC, which I believe is the best thing Kenya has ever received, is that we as Kenyans must first deal with our mindset. Our mindset is such that we believe that some people will come from somewhere and fix things for us, which I think is a disaster in waiting. We need to believe in ourselves as a country, because nobody is going to fix our things for us. CBC, as Jane puts it, is the best curriculum that we have and has challenges, but as Kenyans, I believe we are able to rise up to those challenges. And from where I am in the private sector, the first thing I'm dealing with amongst the directors that I lead, I thank them for giving me that mandate, is to deal with the mindset, then make the attitude positive, so that we must believe in ourselves that we can do it. Because in the absence of positive attitude, we are going nowhere. I don't think there is anybody who is better than the Kenyans, because I'm also well-traveled. I've seen this education in various countries, particularly the CBC. I think last month I came from Estonia, where they are doing the 20th year of their CBC. And exactly it's like a replica of what we have here. And you could see them in their labs. They are already having their remote vehicles. We look like we are doing nothing here. So what is it that ails CBC? Just like Jen puts it, infrastructure. And I think that can be fixed. that can be fixed because we put a lot of money into things that are not necessary. We in the private sector, how do we want to fix that? There's only one way. We are talking with the banks, of course. You know, they don't want us to develop, if I may use, if you understand where I'm coming from. So they have made money very expensive for us investors who want to look, you take that money, put it to use and pay it, because if you want to develop a school, you are not talking of a few shillings, you are talking of millions of shillings. And if the price of that money is skyrocketing, then somebody is trying to do the wrong thing. Now, we are hoping that the government of this country will understand that there are two ways of fixing infrastructure in this country. One, the other will give the concessionary loans, not free money, to the investors in education, because from where I speak, we are needed as much as the government is needed to fix our education. We all need one another. And we must, it's the responsibility of the government in the first place to offer that education. So either they can give concessionary loans to be paid back to fix infrastructure in private sector, or waive duty in some of the things required to make the CBC work. What do I mean? We have been talking here, and most of the people that talked here are talking about content. The part which I think somebody asked a question here was about, what about the infrastructure that will enable this content to be passed over to the students or the pupils? That's the big elephant in the house. And that's why I say the government must rise up and think of either concessionary loan or waive duty on those things, so those who are able can bring these things for use in the country. Very, very key in solving that aspect. I must say that the government has also tried. We are being confused here. I don't believe Africans would give so many children to wait and go and keep old people in the West to earn some coins to bring back to the country. I think that is, we are also getting it wrong. We need to prepare our people to work, just like I think one of the panelists said here. And that is fixing our systems, which we cannot say because African population is growing very fast. Of course, I was in the West the other day, and many of the people you see are old on the streets, and our people will only go there not to do important jobs, but to fix their some of their neglected jobs. We have relatives all over there, they want to come back home. And the mindset, which I think I keep on thinking we must change, is that there is something good somewhere down here is wrong. Our children must believe in us. And we talk of quality education, and education does not start in school. Education starts from your house. What kind of picture are you giving to your children? If you only believe in the foreign things, you don't believe in the Kenyan product, you don't believe you can do something which can create quality in this country, then you need to be taken to school a second time to create the quality we want. Because we'll not get quality when we are lacking issues like integrity. I think Dr. Tony talked of it here. We morally wrong thinking of culture is bad, so we want to import the foreign culture to suit us, thinking that is the best. Thereby we are missing quality. We have very, very healthy quality in ourselves, such that this education we want to give to the children, from where I say, must start with us. I went to school and didn't go to, I remember my early foundation years, we were sitting on stones, and with a teacher who had gone up to class 2, we could only stand, sing, and go back home. But here I am, a panelist today. So why should I be cheated that when I'm in Europe and we are in that classroom, That is the best that we can do. We have things we can nurture here, make them better, create quality, believe in ourselves, and export them so that we can earn that foreign exchange, which will increase our capital and change our living standards. So I sincerely want to tell the educators here, because most of us are involved in these things, that we must change our mindset. We must think positive about ourselves, about our culture, about our integrity. I don't want to go beyond that because 5 minutes is gone, but I think I had a lot about quality, because we can't talk about quality in the classroom when the quality of parenting is weak and poor.
True.
It's lacking. When did you sit with your child last to input quality in this child before the teacher it's not the classroom. It's not the smart panels that relays that information that will bring quality to a child that is morally wrong from the house, taught to live, to do wrong things, from the smartphones to our TVs in the rooms. No boundaries. No boundary. Which quality are we talking about? What you as a parent must be a quality parent to be able to look for quality from a teacher to pass it over to your child. So I think when we look at things, are our morals right? Do we have integrity? We say we lack resources. When we get these resources, every one of us want to amass and take more than you need for the rest of the days you live in this country. So where are we heading? So it is not a matter of blaming the government. It's a matter of asking myself from where I sit. Am I a quality director? Am I a quality chairman in the Kenya Private Schools Association? How do I want to change Kenya Private Schools Association? We don't have the following things. Do I think of looking for things to come and help me? Morally, I will be wrong. I will be out. That thing will be dead on arrival. But if we come together, because I'm talking about improving quality and changing attitudes, changing our mindset, and carrying our generation to the next level so that we have people who will be able to hold these things we are working on together. If as chairman of the Kenya Private Schools, I know we need computers, we need smart classrooms. How do we want to achieve that? We must first know what is in my mind. Is there anything I want out of that to benefit me? So that I create this to be a project. And that's how many of us think. That's the problem that ails us in this country. This country is full of very talented people. Very, very talented. Kenya is endowed with very talented people, but we lack integrity. I hope all of us from here will only create quality from the way we think and the way we behave. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much, Mr. Ochome, on insisting on the importance of creating well-rounded individuals or learners. And I think, just based on, again, what you're saying about the fact that our curriculum is good, you've also, asserted that from Ms. Jen. It's important to probably hear from Dr. Mtisia on how he will compare our curriculum and also the best practices. Dr. Philip Masila Mtisia is the Professor of Education, North Carolina Central University, and Coordinator of Master's Degree in Educational Technology Program, North Carolina Central University, Curriculum Instruction Department in the School of Education. Dr. Mtisia, probably to ask, as an expert, evidently so in curriculum development, how would you compare our competency-based education system, and also what are some of the best practices that you probably have picked from the North Carolina University that we can be able to apply here to achieve quality education for our learners? Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? All right. I think I want to, first of all, thank you for sitting there. I've been sitting there all day long. And I I know what you're feeling. So we're not going to wear you or bore you anymore. But that's great question. Probably we should have asked that question this morning. Then I would have given you a full answer. But this is to me personal, and the question touches me, and because I'm one of those people who have been around the world, from education to experience in real world, and back mostly U.S. Of course, taught in several universities. But the question takes me back to my beginning. I have to tell you that I was the 744. Okay, not 844. The ones before. 744. So 7. It was 7, and then 4. 12th grade, and then you go to college. But I did not go to college here. I went to from first grade 7, then you graduated to go to high school, which was 4 more years right there. Alfafa Jericho Secondary School. And that's the last time I attended education in this country. After that, I went to what they call Elimu Yangumbaro, the University of Hard Knocks, as we characterize it in U.S. Let me just say that it is very interesting when you compare your experience, because I'm not talking theory, I'm telling you what I have experienced, and in my now 72nd year in my life, all people think I'm just 15 years old, which is okay. I was able to experience the world not in the most pleasant way, but at the same time exciting and enlightening. And I have to thank God and first of all my mother, Regina Mweke. You have to mention your heroes, who I didn't have. My father was always away, but he showed up on once a month, bring Colgate milk. Those are the days, Colgate milk. Anybody lived that? I don't think all of you here, any one of you is old enough to have experienced that. But first, from my back of my mother, when she's working in Shamba, I started walking, still on the farm together, still starting hard cattle, and you start with the billy goats, it's small little goats, and then you expand to the bigger. That was classroom for me, to an extent that I went to school when I was 12 years old, and I knew how to read and write. But who taught me? My brother. I could tell you, if I tell you his name, you understand, but not go there. My point is that the standardization of education in planning and the policy does not align with the context it's supposed to be. You design learning experiences so people can experience it. So if I can compare what I have experienced from a curriculum here and a curriculum which is implemented in universities in the Western culture, let's say that way, it is totally opposite of what we're supposed to do. Over in Europe, which is what started us with the missionaries, they were learning who they are from experimenting with us, who we are. So in other words, they're defining who they are, and they researching about, studying us to know who they are. That's a big difference. And it's great to see that although they robbed us and subjected us into the curriculum, something we call curriculum, hoarding kids, young people in a classroom instead of learning as you work, which is working and earning, because we came from farming to be herded to the schools before wars, and that's what we started with mistake there. And in my experience from history, to just skip, when I left Kambani, I was running away from the sun and cutting trees and all that, and herding cows and to come to Afafa Jericho in the city. And I'm glad I did that because it helped me use the experience I had from 12 to about, I went to high school when I was 20 years old, an old man, grown man. I finished high school in 74 when I was 24 years old. I went to teach. First, the school in our area, the secondaries were starting Harambee schools. Anybody remember Harambee schools? Those are schools you just put a little hut together and just sit in it, put kids there. And that's what turned me on learning, and it pushed me to go further in education. There was no training for teachers. That was UT, untrained teachers. I just taught with the notes I took, and we were disciplined. One notebook for the 4 years, because books were not available. I graduated that class at second year, then they went to Form 3 and Form 4, another school, because that's all, I was the only teacher there. Then I would start teaching, left the school, came back here in the cities. I could have been a mayor in Nairobi, but that's another story. We started teaching, training to teach Peace Corps volunteers Swahili and culture. Those are people who come here to find who they are. But they're coming to civilize us. But after 2 years, after we trained them, they were crying when they are going back. They say, we just came here to help, but you helped us more than we helped you. And that's where my curiosity of higher education started. To take a leap up a little bit, I happened to run into National Outdoor Leadership School, an outdoor mountaineering school. The school was up in Narumoro, Kenya. And that's another thing. When you climb mountains and learning about biology, and you just left the Form 4 level, and you learn biology, ecosystem, ecology, from fauna, flora and fauna to the scuba diving in Malindi and all those in the oceans. But that experiential learning created what I came with, and enhanced my experience to develop literacy in how to learn who you are, what you're supposed to do, not what you do is not who you are. And when in developmental stage, I was late comer, but thank God I was able to leap. Someone recognized my 10 years between high school and the career of mountaineering, which took me to US for the first time, but I was able to get a credit for experience. I want to prove that curriculum in US and here, or Western curriculum, the way it's done, it is not meant to enhance a human being. Because you don't have to spend all these years. I'm an example who did not have an undergraduate degree. I went straight to graduate school with master's in Center for International Education, was recruited here, it was an experiment. And that's why I want you to understand. The curriculum is not etched on stone. It's a dynamic curriculum. It's not about the classes. It's not about the content either. It's about experience, the exposure. If anything you learn does not involve emotion, you just might as well don't engage in it. You have to involve when I went to grad school, I focused on a curriculum development in a multicultural and bilingual education with a concentration on literacy and instructional leadership. So because I was trying to see what is wrong with why the education system here and compared. Someone talked about philosophy for the first time. You talked about the beliefs you have. That's in the courses I took. I taught to all of them in graduate school. Not because I was smart, because I knew it, because I experienced that. So teaching was easy for me. Research was easy for me. All I needed to do is a little bit of English to clean up the technical stuff. But anyway, because I know you don't ask a professor in 5 minutes to say it just.
I know, and I'm not going to even rush you, but you know.
Let me conclude
Yes,
answer your
please.
question.
Yes.
The way the education is done in U.S. and here, of the European education curriculum system, it's experimentation of people. It's not designed to. We have a book, Carter G. Woodson, in the 50s, who wrote a book called Miseducation of the Negro. And I was forced to see why I was able to do well here and to do well over there. And the people of their students, or the professors, and they do not impact students the way that we impact our leaders and teachers impacted me, especially my era. There is a dissonance or disconnect. Where they took out culture, took out grammar, in terms of European culture. Our education here, which was shaped by missionary, it was never made to enhance us as a people. It was to just keep us, and like my sister there was to keep up to here. But you are not supposed to be to go up to master's degree. But transformation of education today it has to be contextualized. It has to be service oriented. Our culture, we are entrepreneurs naturally. We are not the people to sit on to be huddled like cows and to lecture at. We have to experience what we are learning. We have to experience what we are talking. Psychology has been up. I don't know who majors in psychology in education. Education psychology, just on one, and I can say why she was so important when she talked about the curriculum, because she understands philosophy. Philosophy and psychology is the same, not separate. But the design of a curriculum, design of learning, the CBC is supposed to be a service-oriented curriculum, which is experiential. It's not static. It's not just going by theories of X and Y. It has to be dynamic, not static. Not fixed mindset, but growth mindset. So I would advise in my wisdom, in my experience, and my wisdom, I would advise, please do not compare. Do not compare other culture with yours. You compare yourself and how you perform. So focus on curriculum is supposed to have activities which grow. And the last thing I want to say is for those who work with education teachers, start looking at, do we find the difference between evaluation versus assessment. That's what I learned about. Because as Paulo Freire said, who's my hero, he said, all education is political. For we either educate to dominate or we educate to liberate. So if you are evaluating, you are teaching to test what is not learned. So it becomes evaluation. But assessment means you assess for performance growth. And there's a big difference. And even psychologically and the philosophical side of it, you have to really know the difference. And focus on the learner, yes. Learner is a subject. And I can have if I had time, that's my field, so I cannot give you an answer in one instance. But let's avoid blaming anybody, self or others. That's why comparing is an issue. I contrast what makes a difference. I cannot blame myself, neither you or others or forefathers or future. It's how do you assess your performance in a life, and do you allow people to be in a way? Now, you have never been in my session whereby I have time, and you run me out of here, but this was not the time for that. But I'll avoid contrasting. I mean, comparing. A contrast is okay. And then also, this cognitive emphasis is when you leave social, when you leave affective, when you leave psychomotor, you're in trouble. You're not educated. You are miseducating the children. And I beseech you to start thinking outside the boxed curriculum, to start engaging and telling your children and exposing to them, they're not empty slates. They come from a womb with a lot of knowledge, but it's to teach them, to expose the experience, which brings out. Education in Greek means edukre, which means to bring out. And we have innate knowledge, which we are wired and naturally, but I'm not going to go to that, because we already got it with the mathematic formulas. So I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that, because that's critical for me. Sure. And remember, who laughs last laughs the best.
Thank you very much. I know between the three of you, Mr. Ochome, Dr. Mtisia, and Ms. Jen, there's a lot of knowledge, and I apologize for rushing you, but because of time, I think it's important that if the audience wants to connect with you later, they can be able to do that, and also, either continue this conversation or learn from you further. So probably if you're on LinkedIn, you can just say your name on LinkedIn. As the mic goes round, we can start with Miss Jen.
You want me to give my
Yes,
LinkedIn
your
profile?
LinkedIn profile, yes, in case they want to connect.
I will update that then send to you.
All right.
But I am Jane. If you just do Jane Mwangi on LinkedIn, you will find me. I am Jane Mwangi on LinkedIn. Just to give the final remarks so that everyone can go home, or probably to the bar on third floor.
Is that in like 30 seconds?
Shorter.
God.
There is something we do in Kenya. Dr. Ari has spoken very eloquently, and so has Mr. Ochome, that we cannot compare, we should contrast, so that our competition becomes ourselves. So we're always looking to improve. And Mr. Ochome indicated that schools cannot fix, education cannot fix what is broken at home. And that is very, very true. The irony with us as a country is that we have known that since the beginning of us as a country. So the first commission of education that sat in this country, I think was called the Omindoan. They came up with something called the Kenya Education Report. And they distilled 9 goals of education. And you will be surprised that in 1964, that report says we cannot create a nation of failures because we cannot do that. Yet, after 30-something years, progressively what we have done with our very high-stakes exams is just that, told our children that they are failures, while refusing to assess the system that calls them that. That same report said, we need to eliminate unhealthy competition in 1964. That same report said that we need to create a culture of global-mindedness while inculcating patriotism. That is in 1964. Now, I don't know whether we have the memory of goldfish. I'm not sure what happens with us, but perhaps what I'm trying to say is we know these things. We know what we're supposed to do. We know what we shouldn't do. And we need to stop treating our children like they are specimen in a crucible or a whatever petri dish, and do right by them, however painful that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jen. Dr. Mtisia, I'm almost afraid to ask you to speak on LinkedIn. How can they find you?
Just
Philip Mtisia.
Yes, and then what I didn't say is look at think about it. Does research look at cause and effect, or is looks for symptoms? There's a question for homework. We meet in LinkedIn.
We meet in LinkedIn.
We need
Thank
to
you.
focus on educational literacy, which you focus critical literacy and understanding culture, your culture, and art, and then engaging in focusing on performance, not grading, not competition. We should not be competing. Education is not competition. It's a sport which you do not need to compete with. The institutions, the same thing, they do the same thing. There's no competition needed. But we need to understand the contradictions. That's what I wanted to say. Critical literacy makes you understand, even a 5-year-old understand the contradictions in of what they're internalizing, conceptualizing, how they're being socialized, and they correct themselves. You don't have to worry about it if you teach them expose them in the right place.
Thank you, Dr. Mtisia. I think the Global Peace Foundation has to organize a webinar so that we join with this panel and definitely continue this conversation because it has not been exhaustive. Mr. Ochome, lastly.
Thank you, Sheila. I think I just want to add one thing. What will help us is not standard education that we compare to the others, just as Professor is saying, but what will help us is to come up with what will answer to our needs. We can have the same standards with the other country, but our needs are different from their needs. And that's where we get it wrong. What are our needs? When I was doing my master's, I learned in the UK that their teaching or their way of disseminating that message is industry-based. Here, we are descriptive. We are asking our students to define what is the capital of Kenya, what does it help the child with. So even if you don't know the capital of Kenya, does it add value to that child? So we must start thinking of how are we going to solve our needs. And every day in my house, when my children ask me, Daddy, is it possible for me to be a wealthy person? I said, yes. And how can I be wealthy? I said, if you can solve people's needs.
Sure.
Anything you want to do that is going to solve other people's needs will give you money. And that's how I want them to start thinking. And that's how we should all start thinking. And I get bored with friends when they tell me their children have not gotten jobs. My child has finished this degree, a second degree, and they keep on taking them to do more degrees. And I say, why can't he create that job? then they take offenses. I want to ask all of us who are saying there will be no jobs. We as Kenyans cannot wait for jobs not to be there. We have needs that when there are young people here who are different, some apps here, they are trying to solve people's problems. And he said, when I finish this, there will be marketers. He was thinking of employing other people. Somebody is telling us there will be no jobs. Why don't we think positive to do things that are going to solve our problem? If it is farming, applications that make farming better can be done at the university, at college level, wherever the level of education. And we need not to tell our children they must go to the university, because the people want to commit suicide, and the people with high education feels all the cows, all the land, all the properties were sold to take you to school. Now you are back and you have nothing to survive on. We must do the maths as we take the children to school, because we are talking about quality. You can get me, Kenyans, we still give our numbers. You can get me on my phone, and I pick all calls.
Wonderful.
And sometimes I don't read text messages, because when there are many and I'm tired, I just go and sleep. And maybe the following day I've not read it, and you say I'm not reading your messages, and sorry, but I was tired. But if you call me and you are lucky, I will pick your call. 0722 56 38 31.
0722
56 38 31.
56 38 31. Thank you so much, gentlemen and lady, for your time and being very resourceful. A round of applause from the audience as they leave the stage. All right. Thank you for being very patient during this session. My name was Sheila Waswa. I was your moderator. Have a lovely night as I hand over to the MC.